indexing the important ones most often. It actually, what happens is that it will have the most comprehensive index in general, and they will be fresher on average than others, but not really as fresh as they should be. What I would say, what we wanted to do when we started was that why not have everything as fresh as it is, like immediately, the minute the page comes on the web, we should have it. That is really the goal we started with. If you look at the challenges, it's incredibly hard. The first challenge, finding new pages is very, very hard. It's a needle in a haystack problem. Or I would say it's a needle in a pile of needles problem. You have to look for the right needle. The thing is, less than 0.5% of pages on the web are new, and most of the pages are not useful. You can imagine when Apple announced iPhone, the most important page on the web suddenly became apple.com/iPhone. But there were a lot of other pages which were talking about iPhone, which had iPhone keyword in them. There were a lot of new ones which were coming, a lot of people with different motivations putting these pages out there, some confirming the rumors, some commentary, some spam, a whole bunch of different reasons why pages were coming up. And we had to make sure that we knew that apple.com/iPhone is the most important page to go discover right now.
Yes. You run a pile of page rank there too, because newer pages are less likely to be referenced?
Yes, that's one of the ranking challenges. So this is, just the crawling challenge itself is pretty severe, that you have to know where to go look, right? We don't even know where to start. But you don't have time. Time is running out. That's the whole problem with freshness. Indexing is another problem, which is, even if, let's say that I know that apple.com/iPhone is the page I should bring in. Now, there is a whole process of building the index for it, right? You cannot go and build the index for that easily, because you are dealing with a billion documents here. One of them has changed. You are in this process of building. And how do you go and suddenly make sure that that index is updated and pushed out as fast as possible? Because even if you start the process and it, let's say, takes a week, well, if it takes a week, it's a week too late. The human curiosity, if you remember the graph in the past, usually what we see is that anything which actually suddenly piques people's interest will rise, and then it'll fall to a new level, which is standard from here on. Yes.
Since you know what people are searching for, can't you build an index of these are the most commonly searched things? So if one of these things changes, give this extra bonus points.
Yes, that is an approach in ranking which you could use, but the problem is you can easily spam that.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. So the indexing challenge itself is pretty huge, but let's say that you go and index and now you have the document available. Let's take that state. You are giving a query, and what will happen is everybody knows that this query is going to be prominent right now, and at that point they will quickly go and they will find documents to inject. So you cannot just rely on the query. And there are other problems too. There are different queries which become important for different reasons which have nothing to do with us. And really, it's not about finding the new page. It's as much as somebody trying to find information which is pretty old, but suddenly a lot of people, like let's say, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game comes on, right?
Yeah.
And somebody asks a question. The answer to that is not fresh. The document to that is not fresh. But the number of queries coming in is suddenly spiking.
Right.
Now, that's something which is very hard, and people will immediately abuse that. So we got to be careful in that. Very interesting one, which some friends of mine work in Windows Live, and I pointed this out to them afterwards, was that when they renamed their product, it was very interesting that somebody wrote on the blog saying, hey, we renamed our product and our search engine is not showing yet that we have renamed it, and Google already is showing that. And the third thing which I have seen multiple incidents of and people have blogged about, and it gave us a lot of satisfaction too, is that here's an example. You go to a message board or something, or a blog, you read about something, and you type a comment. You say, I think, here is a reference to something. You type a comment. Then, you're not done. You think like, oh, maybe I should give a pointer. You do a search, and you see your comment right there in the search results. And you're like, wow, that's really scary to some people, that I was just doing search to find what I was referencing, and my own comment showed up. But that is how fast it has been. Google Hot Friends, so that we can just talk about the same theme. This is really quick. So we used to have something called Google Zeitgeist once upon a time, which was a compiled list of queries over time. It tells you what the world is talking about, zeitgeist, the state of the world around you. Then we provided a product called Google Trends, which is analysis of queries over time. You can compare queries to one another. You can analyze effect of languages, locales, and so on and so forth on them. These are all publicly available products you can go use from Google. And most recently, it was Google Hot Trends was published, and really top rising queries in Google search tree. So what actually is happening over there? So how do we do it? Simple. Build predictive models based on the statistics for the query. Find queries that are deviating significantly, and then the list of that at any time is the hot trends. Some interesting cases, queries that generally don't make it. People when look for Yahoo, there's generally steady stream of people searching for Yahoo. It generally does not make it. Queries with very low past traffic and sudden rise, these are easy to identify. Katrina, when Hurricane Katrina hit, this was very easy to identify. But queries with high past traffic and sudden rise have a little bit of problem because significant deviation means something different. iPhone is an example. People were searching for iPhone before it came out, right? You could not actually apply this logic because pages were coming up and people were searching before the announcement happened and the page came online. Sudden rising query pairs also are very interesting. People search for Vanity Fair suddenly a lot, and then the same people are searching for Tom Cruise a lot because Tom Cruise appeared, or his baby appeared on the Vanity Fair cover page, and people were interested. Certain queries are periodic. Their rise should not mean anything. Every morning people will search for weather. Every evening they'll search for Daily Show. Every April 14th they'll search for You shouldn't really read much into it. So what is the real challenge here? The challenge is scale. Because you can imagine, to do statistical analysis of something, you have to know about the query volume. And really, the query space is infinite. You can type in anything into it. How do you build predictive models for infinite set of things? That's one problem. Timeliness of detection is another problem. How do you make sure? This is all about timing. How do you make sure that you're doing this at a large scale, infinite number of queries, in a very timely manner, which should be as close to zero as possible from the time when the deviation occurred. Spam is, of course, a huge issue, because the minute you start using the signal anyway, it's so easy to play with it. And false positives and negatives are a problem. Gave you the example of, all of a sudden, a lot of people searching for a question which came on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. It's not really interesting. There's nothing we can do about it other than just show that people were looking for it. But, say Ted Kennedy died, that is something which is very important for us because we want to find all the new content about it to make it available. So what is the practical application for something like this? Flu Trends was a practical application which tries to predict how many people will be visiting doctors based on how many people have queried. It builds models from the past and all that. There is a white paper on it. You can Google about it. So where do we go from there? I will not talk about problems. This is the last slide, right? So, future. There's a lot yet to be done in each one of these. Real-time search, you can imagine. There is so much more we can do. A lot of information today before it is found on Google is found on Twitter. Push-based web. There's no reason web can only be pull-based. More and more things are moving towards push-based. How can we use that better? It actually, with invisible web, works better. I missed that. Can we predict other trends beyond flu? Are there other useful things which can be done? There are a lot of other unreleased projects yet to be talked about. And here is something which we have not talked about yet, but I think I can mention it. So we have a special team here in Kirtland whose sole job is to experiment with ways we can radically change the face of web search. So we are trying to figure out what are the new and novel things which really can happen in web search. And that's why I can confidently say some of the best web search work worldwide is actually being done here. I've shown you 2 examples of what we have done. Right. Any questions?